Leaving a toxic relationship should feel like freedom, but why does it so often feel terrifying, lonely, and impossible? Today, we're breaking down why walking away from a narcissist is one of the hardest things you'll ever do and how to finally stay free. Have you ever felt something was wrong but couldn't explain it? Like the person you love was slowly chipping away at your sense of self?
Believe me, we have been there. Different marriages, but to the same man, with the same toxic pattern. But God was still working.
We're Lizzie and Deana, women of faith, survivors, and truth tellers.
Surviving toxic relationships is for any woman stuck in confusion, healing after betrayal, or just searching for her voice again.
You are not crazy.
You are deeply loved.
Hey, welcome back to Surviving Toxic Relationships with me, Lizzie and Deana. We kind of are doing something a little different. It's been a while. Deana and I realized we have not been able to have our own just podcasts. Like, we have enjoyed some incredible guests who have joined us and have shared some incredible stories and insight and wisdom. But we just felt like having one when it's just me and her. I know we've talked about exiting safely from a very abusive relationship. We know that we've been talking about the healing portion of coming out of the toxic relationships. So today we're going to veer back into leaving the toxic relationship, but also the fact that it could be a very awkward, uncomfortable, unpredictable stage that can be very volatile because you get all kinds of other things that come at you from the partner that you tried to leave. I know we've used terms like hoovering, love bombing, all kinds of things, which kind of keep us in the midst, I think, of a fog. We deal with a lot of guilt when we're trying to leave. Deana, start off with what you were thinking.
Thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, I want to talk about this today because sometimes the best subjects come from people that you are talking to out in the world, or conversations that you happen upon in Facebook groups. And so this one just was a recurring theme that I thought really needed to be talked about. And that is all the emotions that you feel when you finally get the courage to leave that narcissistic, toxic, fill in the blank relationship. Because it is really a difficult time for you and it's going to get better. But when you finally make that decision to leave, it doesn't feel like it's going to get better. It feels like your whole world has fallen apart. Now, on some cases, you leave the relationship and there's nothing but relief and joy and, oh my gosh, I can't believe that finally happened. And that could be whether you left or whether your significant other left. But I think in most of the cases, those feelings can be very short-lived because when you initially leave, there's this relief and there's this incredible amount of personal space that you get where you're not being put down or abused or confused. And all of a sudden your decisions are your own and your life is your own and there's nobody there to make you feel like garbage. And so you can just be so, so happy. Going back to my relationship, that's exactly how I would feel. And I left this man 9 times over the span of 27 years. And they'd say that the average is 7 times before you can actually leave your abuser for good because of the complications of all of the dynamics of these relationships, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the tactics that they use, and the trauma bonding. They're huge. And if that's not complicated enough, leaving a relationship with someone who isn't a narcissist is also very difficult because you made a family with this person. You might love this person. It's a whole entire community that is now being broken apart. And you can have a lot of strong toxic emotions from this. Because again, I would leave my ex and I would be so relieved and so happy. And it would feel so, so freeing. But in the span of a few weeks, reality would hit in. And when reality set in, that's when it really hit me. That's when all those emotions changed from, exuberant joy and relief to, oh my gosh, I'm alone. I don't know what I'm going to do financially. I'm scared. I'm insecure. And that's when I was very vulnerable to go back. That's when all of his hoovering and flying monkeys and all those tactics would actually start to make an impact. So I want to talk about that because it's so important. If you finally get out of a relationship that is extremely toxic, you've got to have some tips to not fall into that pit and go back, because those emotions should never be the reason that you go back. So let's talk about this. Okay, you're leaving your abuser and you start to feel terrified. This is affecting your security. So even if this person has been a terrible person and it's been a hard life, in a weird way, it was still security. This was your day to day. This was your routine. You might have had children with this person. You might have had an entire family around you. It gave you a sense of security. They talk about foster kids being taken out of an abusive foster home. And maybe these kids were horribly abused, but they are still going to feel absolutely terrified and horrified to be taken out of that home. It's no different for us. This is a sense of security. So that is something that you have got to really understand that's going to happen, and you have to know how to walk through it. The best way to walk through it is to give yourself a community of people around you. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of people. It could be your mom. It could be your therapist. It could be your sister, your friends. As many people as you can. Keep those people around you and understand that this is temporary. You're going to feel this way now because you are now facing a whole new reality in your life, and everything that felt normal and routine and secure is now gone. But it is just a passing through stage. The fear of the unknown is part of that security, and it is usually more scary than choosing that terrible life with the narc. So you need to understand to not fall in that. That's going to get better, okay? Another thing that you'll end up feeling is a sense of loneliness. You might feel that it would be better to be with somebody awful than to even risk being alone. And this emotion is so strong in that intermittent space that you might feel that that's how you're going to feel forever, but it is not. Remember, your emotions are going to be way up here during that intermittent time. They're not going to stay there. You are going to develop a new sense of self. You are going to develop new communities, new routines, new family and friends, and all of that is going to come back to you. Right now, it's just those first emotions that are getting at you. Another one is when we have low self-esteem. We have such a hard time venturing out on our own and creating our own life. This is especially if you haven't really been in the workplace, if you've been a stay-at-home mom, and that's all you know is just being that family person. You haven't had to work a job outside the home. You haven't had to take care of yourself. Narcs capitalize on making sure that their victim feels that they need them in their life in order to survive, in order to be happy. And they will literally erode your sense of self over all the time that you're with them, so that stepping out by yourself without them feels like a child getting lost in the grocery store without their parent. Terrifying. But it is so important to know that, once again, this is transitional. This is not where you're going to live. You are going to have to do some work, and you're going to have to rebuild that sense of self. And leaving your abuser is the first step for that. So when you doubt your abilities outside of the abuser, or you feel like you can't make it, or you feel like I'm never going to be okay, or nobody will ever love me, remember, those are lies. When you're with an abuser, there's something called a trauma bond. And I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of a trauma bond. A trauma bond forms when you've had extreme highs and lows in a relationship, especially when your abuser is awful to you, or withholds love, or is extremely emotionally harsh with you. And then they turn around when you behave and they love bomb you, or when you're done. When you put your foot down and say, I am done with you, suddenly here comes the love and the attention and the care that you've been craving in that relationship. Suddenly you become the focus of their attention. So trauma bonds are like being in a cult. You've heard of people being in a cult where they just cannot get out. They cannot refocus their brain to see the truth that's standing right in front of them. When you are in a trauma bond, it is incredibly difficult to leave that abuser because you have more than just loving them. You have an insane bond and almost an unhealthy need for this person in your life so that you can feel whole. So understand that that is part of why you feel this way. It is a cultic thing, or like being addicted to crack. And that needs to be resolved in your life before you can actually move on. So leaving your abuser is going to need a time of healing and restoration and reinvention. And that is something that's going to be wonderful. And it's going to give you that new life that you have dreamt about, that you've craved the whole time you're with the abuser. So one piece of advice here, when you come out of that relationship and all those emotions flood in, and that fear and terror and doubt and all those screaming lies, you're going to fail, you're going to starve, you're not going to have any money, this is not going to work, you're going to be alone. Shut those down. Do not allow those in your mind or your heart, because they're just your fears screaming at you. And then as you get further away from the relationship, a lot of times you tend to forget the why of why you left, especially if they're crying and weeping, or they're, giving you flowers. They're begging you back. They're telling you that they can't live without you. They're promising that they're going to be better. They're promising that everything's going to be changed. When that starts happening and you're already in this transitional period, it gets very tempting. And that's how I got hoovered back every time. Not only was I feeling all these terrible emotions, but my ex was pounding me and love bombing me and making me feel like everything was going to be different. And in the meantime, the longer I was away from him, the more I kind of forgot why I left in the first place. And in addition was the guilt. You feel this terrible guilt, especially since I was the one that made the decision to leave every single time. The guilt was overwhelming. I felt like I had failed. I felt like I hurt him. I hurt my children. I hurt my family. I was the reason that this whole family was coming apart. And believe me, there were people that actually agreed with that. He would make sure of it. He would call people. He would call my family, my mom, my sisters. He would call our pastor and weep and cry and say that I was leaving and that he was sorry, and that he would actually admit that he had done things, which was also, by the way, a tactic that I found out later he would do just to make himself seem more vulnerable and more honest. But it was literally just a tactic. But he would pound and hound me. And something that I can recommend is sit down and write down every reason that you left. I don't care if you have to write down from day one of meeting this person, every time they hurt you, they wounded you, they gaslit you, they manipulated, they said horrible things, they did horrible things, they betrayed you, they cheated, they lied, they stole. Write those things down. And I'm telling you, if you have to look at those every single day, then do it. Because what you need right now, so that you don't go back, is you need to stay in truth. Truth about who this person really was and why you had to leave. The normal person does not leave a secure, loving, joyful relationship. They leave because they were desperate. Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to separate their family. Nobody wants to do that. You did it because you felt it was the only way out. But it makes you still feel like you did something wrong, or you failed, or you were awful. And believe me, your abuser will capitalize on that and say that you are terrible and that you're mean and that you didn't let them say their side of the story, and that you are being cruel because they would have worked this out. Or they might flip the whole script of your entire relationship and say that really it was you, that you did all this and now you're leaving them. It is so confusing. But the only way, again, is to stay in truth. Write all these things down. And if they're doing this and you're getting confused, either go to someone that you trust, that knows how the relationship really was, that can bring you back to truth, or get a therapist and have them keep you accountable on a regular basis. It only takes a very short time before you'll let your mind go back into that captivity. You'll let yourself fall for those lies. And then there you are, you're trapped again. You need to break this cycle. And the only way to do it is by facing all of these emotions and remembering that they are temporary. Stay in truth, form a community, watch those fearful thoughts that are lying and screaming things at you that are not true, and understand that this is completely normal and it's only temporary. You will get to the other side. You will have an amazing life. You will be free. And I promise you, even mine and Lizzie's kids say, thank God that you didn't stay in that relationship. And we actually wish you would have gotten out sooner, which I know for me, I thought it'd be the opposite. I thought they would be angry and upset and horrified that I had left, or make me feel like I'm to blame. And once in a while, a kid will do that, depending on the abuser, if they're twisting the kids' minds. But you need to understand that the only way out is through, and you need to gird up your strength And if you're a faith-based person, that's going to be one of the most amazing places for you to get that faith back and literally ask God to help you and give you the strength to see the truth and cut through the lies, get through the fog, and get your life back. There's green grass on the other side. Don't let this stop you from getting to your ideal and perfect life.
100%. And I was thinking, if you are a faith-based person, you are in these situations, pray Ephesians 6, the armor of God. So that way you are girding yourself with truth, biblical truth. But something that, like we were talking about before the recording, this leaving part is a very awkward stage in the whole toxic relationship, because when you're in it, you're miserable. Not every day is bad, as we said before. You have some really good days, and those are the things that keep drawing you back to the hope. But it's very awkward when you leave. And I know this sounds probably quirky, but I think of a teenager, and I think I talked about this yesterday. I think of a teenager. I work with teenagers, can't you tell? And they're always very awkward. Very awkward. And the rest of us look and go, oh, we know you, we've all been there. You're going to get through. Right? So if you're someone supporting a friend or a family in these situations, just realize this phase is very awkward for the victims. It's a very emotional roller coaster. And just like you would with a teenager, you have to be patient and pray they don't go back, because it is the beginning stages of the whole healing. You start the phase of healing the minute you or your friend or family step out of that relationship, but it's also that very volatile situation that they easily can get hoovered, trauma bonded, guilt tripped back into the home, and then it keeps building from there, and they'll keep leaving. So just realize it is awkward, it is uncomfortable, it is very icky. It's very icky for people that when you have to walk through it, because it just seems confusing to you. You see it clearly if you are supporting somebody, but the person in it does not see it clearly. And that's why we say support is critical. You could keep encouraging them. Hey, let's write down. I'll even sit here and take notes. What was it, the reason you left? Let's write this down together, because if they're in emotional survival mode, they may not be thinking of that if they're listening to this. I think that is a great way to do it. And it's just not easy, but neither is teenagers.
That's why I went back so many times. 9 times is huge, but this cycle repeated itself every single time. And honestly, Lizzie, I think it got to a point where when I would tell him, if you do this again, I cannot stay. I have to go. I can't do this anymore. And I really think it got to a point where he did not believe it, where he was just like, I could do anything to her and she will not leave. She might move out. She might stay with her mom for a month or two. She might even file papers. She's not going to leave. And I think it gave him the confidence just to keep doing what he was doing. Even though he hit it better and better, he knew I'd catch it eventually. So it's, think about us as women and men who deal with this stuff. Think about how much it erodes us as human beings when we live in this situation to the point that this person believes that you will never leave because you just don't have it. You don't have what it takes to leave. Or I'm going to make sure you have no money or no resources. I'm going to make sure that you can't leave. Well, we are bigger than that.
So you can't get a place to live.
I'll destroy your credit. Exactly. I'll destroy your credit. I will put all the money's in my name. I pay all the bills. I have the bank account. You can't go anywhere. That's why it's so important that we have a community and we have support. And, if you're able to pre-plan your leave and really get things in order first, that's the best way, because then you have a little pocket of money, you already know where you're going, etc. But still, this person who victimizes you will always flip the script and they will become the victim once you finally put your foot down. And it's so confusing because all of a sudden, they are vulnerable, they are weak, they are depressed, they are sad, maybe even suicidal. Lizzie and I experienced that where he threatened to commit suicide. And all of a sudden you're dealing with their emotions, and now you're dealing with your emotions because of this whole moving toward a different life and that terrifying feeling of the insecurity. But that's where it's important, and we've talked about this many times, to go gray rock. Tell this person, I want you to not call me or contact me unless it is about something that has to be talked about, like the children or our divorce. Otherwise, do not talk to your ex, because they will make sure to completely warp your mind and do everything they can to get you back. And that's what happens to make you come back, is you listen to that. You give ear, you give attention to what they're saying. You try to be fair and reasonable and just, because these narcissists, they pick good people. They pick good people who are kind and empathetic, and they want to be fair and they want to be just. So they're going to appeal to that sense of justice in you. They're going to appeal to you not wanting to be alone, to, you being taken care of, all those things. They'll use every single tool. You have got to remember to shut them down, get away. I don't care if you have to go out of state and stay with mom or dad or grandma or aunt or friend and just go away where they can't get to you. You've got to get your own sense of self and get away from those voices so that you can get back to truth. Staying in truth is the most important tool to actually getting to the other side. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, I was about to say, and that's why David Clark, we've mentioned him a few times. He's gotten some books on narcissism and leaving, that when you are in this stage, you need a middleman or woman who can keep things very platonic, to realize they're not going to talk to you in this stage, because that is a very common problem. And it's a very common problem that a victim in that mentality do not know how to handle. And I think that's why I keep going back to the support. Because as a support person, if you know these things, not that you may be the person to be the middleman, but you can give knowledge to the victim. Because Deana and I have learned that a lot of people aren't listening who are in this phase because of just where their mindset is or where their availability to listen to this kind of stuff. Just hang in there and know that you are not alone. It's very common if you are in these situations, and the guilt and the fact that they are calling you and they're hoovering you, and they do it in a way because they know that that is what won you the first time. They'll just keep doing it.
It's a tactic, guys. It's a tactic. If you've been with this person and they've told you they were going to change, and they told you they were going to do things differently, and they have not, you have no reason to believe they're going to this time. Honestly, what's your reason to believe that all of a sudden now, this time it's going to be different? They would have kept you in the first place. They wouldn't have lost you in the first place. The fact that you're leaving means that something is very, very wrong, and they did not fix it as soon as you brought it to their attention. And if they didn't fix it, they're not going to fix it. So again, stay in truth. Find somebody, find the strongest person that you know, and use them to help you stay in truth.
Absolutely. If you were listening, thank you again, and we do hope you have a wonderful day. Leaving a toxic or narcissistic relationship isn't the end. It's the beginning of healing, freedom, and rebuilding your life. The fear, the guilt, the trauma bond, it all feels overwhelming in the moment, but it will pass. Stay grounded in truth, surround yourself with support, and remember, you are stronger than the cycle trying to pull you back. If this episode encouraged you, please subscribe, share it with someone who needs hope, and leave us a comment on your favorite platform. Your voice helps us reach others who feel alone in their struggle. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and know you're not walking this journey alone. Thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful day.